Alright, so John Aomine has already been confirmed on the Facebook announcement that he will be coming tomorrow, so from the 26th of March all the way to the 8th of April. So let's take a look at all of his talents. I'm not going to go into the actual description, you guys can just read that in-game yourself when he's actually out officially, but I will show you guys the talent priority, and also I'll talk about whether or not you need any awakening for him as well. And then at the end of the video, I will also show you some simple gameplays for him, so you kind of know his main attack patterns. Okay, so let's start off with his talent priority. So ignore what I have here. I was just kind of testing him best on my Taiwan account, so you can ignore this for the time being. I'll tell you exactly what to upgrade. First of all, so the first one you want to do is going to be his ultimate attack. You want to go up to here, which is like a zone dash button. So basically the idea here is that without this you don't see this extra key, which is basically on the left hand side, so this left yellow button. If you don't have this unlocked, you basically lack an entire button, okay, and then you can't even execute like half of the move he has when he's actually on the zone. So this is very important, the first thing you want to unlock. Then the next thing you want to unlock is going to be the first branch, and you actually want to unlock all the way to the end, and that's because you don't get this step back, which is very important for you to stretch out and open up the space for your team, okay? So you definitely want this. And then the next one you want is going to be hook shot. You actually only need the first node on the hook shot, which is basically just a drive on hook shot. And then the next one you want is going to be the second block timing for his stun. And at this point, I would say John Aomine is already going to be perfectly fine and playable in high ranking matches, okay? Now, if you do have extra resources, what I would suggest further is that to go all the way to the end on the third branch, because at the very end, you basically have this thing, which is going to be another variation where he can almost like fake step backwards to fake a drive and then go into a dunk. So you can do this. This also get hugely buffed up if you actually have him at Awakening 6, but even without Awakening 6, this is just another variation that you can do. And then all of the ones in the middle, you also have loads of catch and dunk move, which are also nice. This will also be further buff if you have him at Awakening 2, but even without Awakening 2, this is just another variation you can use to catch people unexpected, okay? So this will be the next one you want to do if you do have extra resources, but if you're like free to play, just the first one's already minimum viable. Okay, and then if you have even more resources afterwards, I would suggest go on the hook shot and you can go all the way to the end. And basically what this does is that when the opponent is staggered or ankle broken, and the staggering is from his skill 1, basically when you do this you can quickly then do a shoot straight away. The problem with this is that even when you stagger them, as you can see, they could still be in your contest area depending on how far away they are from you at that point. So this would be solved at Awakening 4, but without Awakening 4 this is kind of basically giving you a guaranteed shoot, but it's an interfered shoot, which is not ideal. Okay, so that's kind of why this is a lower priority. And the thing that he does to make the opponent stagger is going to come from his skill 1. So basically when you press this alt dash button and then drive, you can see here the enemy will slowly fall back and basically in stagger state, so they can't actually keep up with you to block you. Okay, so that's kind of the idea. And then afterwards, I would probably suggest to go for the ult, which then basically have a dash and block, which is very strong. And then lastly, you can do the second branch. So the second branch is basically a stealing skill, which, I mean, I guess you can unlock the first node if you want. The tricky thing is more the next two nodes, which I feel like is very hard to pull off. So this one is an interception skill, which is very similar to Akashi's one, but you need to literally press 3 buttons to do it. So I feel like it's actually really hard to get the timing right. And same thing with this. This one is nice in theory because a lot of time when you're trying to steal, you're actually going to be out of position to block. However, this one, as soon as you steal, you can still basically press this alt dash and then the block button to still quickly be in time to block as well. But once again, like you're already tight on the block timing and you need to press like another 2 buttons on top of that. I just feel like it's a bit hard to actually pull off in actual matches. So that's kind of why I feel like skill 2 or the second branch, you can leave it to the very end. You can probably even leave those completely not unlocked as well, because I do feel like it's going to be very, very hard to actually use them in real matches. Okay, so that's going to be talent priority. So once again, just a reminder, for skill 1, you want to unlock this completely. For ultimate, you want to get up to at least this here. this one here to unlock this zone dash button. And then for the dunk, you want to go for the first one, which is the second block timing, and then also this hook shot for the drive and hook. And then at this point, it's going to be playable. And then if you have extra resources, you can go and unlock the dunk completely, and then also unlock the hook shot completely, and then follow up by finishing off the ult, and then only at the very end go for the stealing one. Okay, so that would be the talent priority in my opinion. Let's take a look at his awakening. So once again, I'm not going to read it out. You guys can read the description itself once he's in game. But awakening 1, basically it can increase the time he's going to be in zone, which is very, very nice because he is kind of like a completely different character when he's actually in zone versus outside the zone. Then awakening 2, he gets this catch and drive ability, which is very strong because before, if you have this catch and dunk, people know as soon as you raise your hand, you catch the ball, you have to dunk, so people will be prepared for this. However, now you can actually drive, and a lot of time because people have to jump for your dunk, that basically give you an open opportunity to do other things afterwards. Okay, so this is very, very strong as well. So in my opinion, I will suggest to get at least to awakening 2. Then awakening 4 is basically the stagger move. So basically before I said that if you actually stagger the opponent, but that opponent is still in your contest area, it will be still interfering your shot. However, with this, even if they are actually inside your contest area, it will be counting as an open shot. Okay, so this is very important if you actually want to cheat point with this kind of just like stagger opponent and then shoot straight away. And this would also kind of force the opponent needing to assist in defense. Otherwise, this is like 100% unguarded because whoever you stagger, there's no way they will be able to interfere or block you. Okay, so this is very strong as well. And then awakening 6, this is basically a faster version of the very last talent on his dunk branch. So if I just go back to show you his dunk. So basically, at the very end of this, there's this bit where he kind of like turn around and then do a dunk. If you just take a look at the speed here, it's not very fast, okay? He is basically moving fairly slowly, like taking, I don't know, like half a second for each one of his moves, right? However, if you actually have him at a high awakening, so completely max awaken, it's going to be a lot faster, okay? And basically, it gives you the exact same move. However, you have 2 different timing for it, and that makes it a lot harder for the enemy to actually predict which timing will be, and then it's obviously going to be harder to defend. Okay, so that's basically the idea. So obviously, as you can see, Awakening 4 and Awakening 6, they are both very strong, but bare minimum, I would say at least Awakening 2 for this another entire way to organize attacks. Okay, so that would be my recommendation for Zhong Amine's Awakening. Okay, now let me show you guys some of the basic attack pattern for Zhong Aomine, and I'm only going to show you the basic one because I do not have him awakened on my Taiwan account, so therefore I can't actually show you some of the more advanced techniques such as the catch and drive variations, etc. But to be honest, those should be quite straightforward. Essentially, what you're going to do is just rather than you attack like how you were holding the ball from the start, you actually pass the ball to your teammate so that you can do a catch and drive, trying to open up some opportunity for yourself first before then going into one of the more basic attack pattern. Okay, so that's pretty much the main difference here. But now let me just show you some of the basic attack pattern for Zhong Amine. Now Zhong Amine is going to kind of split into 2 phases. One is going to be when he's actually outside of his zone, and then the second one is obviously when he's actually inside the zone. And to be honest, outside the zone, he doesn't really offer too much of a threat, especially if the enemy can actually allocate exactly who will be defending against each of your block timing, etc. Then it's actually going to be quite difficult for Zhong Amine to actually score. However, once you are actually inside zone, that opens up a whole range of options you can do. But anyway, let's start off with the basic one, which is outside of zone. So outside the zone, he really only have 2 methods of attack. One is going to be drive and hook shot. Now obviously for this one you can obviously drive to both left and then do a double drive to the right as well. Okay, so you can mix up the direction however you want, but the basic idea is the same. Okay, it's going to be a drive and then a hook shot, and then the other variation you can do is going to be a drive and then a follow up by dunk, and then obviously for the dunk you can actually do the first block timing or the second block timing, and then actually I just remember there's also a third variation which is going to be a catch and dunk, but I don't actually have that unlocked on this account because obviously I'm going free to play here. So that's kind of what I'm not able to show you. But essentially, those are kind of 3 different ways of Aomine can attack. Now, catch and dunk is obviously going to be somewhat dependent on your teammates, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. That's more just down to your synergy with your teammate. However, just in terms of the basic attack pattern between, for example, drive and hookshot, and also drive and dunk, the most optimal area where you want to execute it is going to be right behind this kind of white line, okay? This horizontal white line. And the reason for this is that if you actually stand too far out, for example, towards a perimeter, if you actually do a drive, you won't actually be in the range for that dunk. So if you're actually standing that far out, people know the only thing you can do is basically shoot or do a hook shot afterwards. So therefore, it's very easy to know exactly what you're doing and therefore defend against you. Whereas if you're actually standing right underneath or right behind this kind of white horizontal line, what you can do is actually you can time it. Actually, maybe I'm not close enough, so maybe I have to be right behind the line here. And then what you can do is that you can actually get into range where if you do actually drive around here, the enemy is not going to be sure whether you'll be doing a hook shot or a dunk, and therefore whoever is marking you, they have to be end up defending against your hook shot, and that basically leaves the center trying to guess your first and second block time in terms of a dunk. Okay, so that's basically how you can potentially score some points with Aomine outside the zone, and that's probably the most easiest way. It's a kind of a guessing game, so don't try to get this right every single time. It's going to be impossible. But basically, that's kind of the most basic attack pattern you can do outside the zone. Now, once you are actually inside zone, it's going to be a complete different matter. Okay, so one big thing when you're actually in zone is the fact that Aomine can drive indefinitely. Okay, so you can literally go however you want. It's a bit like Kasamatsu in the sense that when he is driving all of this, what's going to happen is that you can basically just drive around trying to find the best spot. And as soon as you see a free open opportunity, then what you can do is you just do a hook shot. Or for example, if you realize that when you're driving around, because you meant to get away whoever is supposed to be marking you and the center's coming out to defend you, then you basically drive and then just dunk straight into center because the center is dunk straight towards the basket because the center will be out of position because they were trying to help to assist against defending your hook shot. Okay, so that's basically one of the main things you can do when he's actually in zone. You just literally drive around trying to find the best spot, and obviously I was trying to do it in single time. So for example, if you keep on pressing it, what's going to happen is that you'll be just driving back in the opposite direction. However, if you just pause or have a slight gap between your drive, you can actually control them to always be in the same direction. Okay, so for example, you can start off from all the way here, then what you can do is like this. Oops, sorry. You can do this and then do this and then do this, okay? And then you drive all the way to the other side of the court, okay? So that's all the things you can do, and this is all about your spatial awareness of whether or not you can actually able to create some free open space for yourself, okay? So that's the most basic thing you can do when you're actually in zone. Then the next thing you can do is you mix this up with the back step, okay? So what you do is, once again, if you enter zone, what you can do is, oops, sorry, I pressed the wrong here. But basically what you do is you do a drive, you do your alt dash, and then you do the pass button, which is basically retreat, and then you follow up with a hook shot. So this is almost like the equivalent of his fadeaway, okay? So it'd be like this. I'm not sure I've done that right. Actually, let me try again. Yeah, so this will be like this, okay? So you can see I started off around here, but then by the time I actually finish my attack, I'm almost towards the perimeter line, okay? So that's basically something you can do. Because a lot of time people might be suspecting you would just be trying to find open space and then finish off with either a hook shot or with a dunk towards the basket, and then they're not actually defending the outside. And that's where you can then potentially catch them off guard because you can then do this. And as you can see, you can actually finish off very far. I didn't move at all after I pulled off the hook shot, and you can see I actually ended outside the 3-point line, okay? So you can definitely shoot very, very far from this and catch people unguarded, okay? So that's going to be another way of how you can organize your attacks when you actually have zone. Okay, now the last thing I'm going to show you is how to force stagger with Aomine's alt dash and drive, okay? So basically the way you do this is you first of all enter zone, and then what we're going to do is you'll quickly press the alt dash followed by the drive button, and if the enemy is actually in this kind of red contest area, they should be forced to stagger for a bit, and that gives you the opportunity to find the open space afterwards, okay? So let me try to show you. See here? basically you will full stagger that, and then that gives you an open opportunity to shoot. Okay, now another variation of this is that because you will be able to full stagger whoever is in your contest area, some opponent may actually want to defend you without being inside your contest area. In those kind of cases, because there's this natural distance between you and your opponent, what you can then do is simply to do a step back hook shot instead, okay, to take advantage of that space. So once again, remember you enter zone, then you want to do a drive and then a hook shot, okay? And because the opponent was trying to keep that distance away from you, this will be almost certainly an open opportunity as well, okay? Now, everything I just showed you is obviously the basic attack pattern if you don't have any dupes on him. If you do have him awakened, then like I said, you can actually organize a lot more attacks by starting off with this catch and drive first of all. This already forces one opponent to actually jump for your dunk in case that you actually do the dunk. However, what you can do afterwards is just follow up with this drive, and then you go back into your normal basic pattern of driving around trying to go for hook shot or do another dunk once you have already driven away, okay? And let's say if the center jump for your first dunk, likely he won't be back in time to jump for your second dunk. Okay, so that's kind of the idea here. And then obviously, once you stagger the opponent, this also gives you another way to shoot immediately, and also Awakening 6. This goes for you a whole another move that you can execute as well. Okay, so that's gonna be kind of the main guide I want to cover for Aomine. Let me know what you guys think of this character and if you're planning to summon for him.